Super excited to welcome Dr. Derya Unutmaz. He's a professor and principal investigator at the Jackson Laboratory, where he leads research on aging and cancer immunotherapy. He also is infamous here on X, one of the top influencers, I would say, in using AI models for research. With amazing takes on the future of science and medicine, I'd say. Tell us, Derya, what's your origin story?
First of all, thanks for the invite. Infamous is probably the right word. Just very briefly, my interest in AI and technology in general is nothing new, actually. I've been very interested in computers since I was a teenager. At those times, computers were just coming out. My first computer had 4 kilobytes of RAM. So you can imagine, it was very primitive, but at the same time, super exciting because for the first time, I realized, you can actually tell this machine to do something and it does it for you. My interest continued even though I went to medical school. After I finished medical school, I went into research. I've been doing immunology research for the past 35 years. But I've been very interested in AI since early 90s. Since I read this book from Ray Kurzweil called "The Age of Intelligent Machines." It was the first time that I realized, artificial intelligence could be something, maybe the biggest technological advance of humanity, because you could do things that we couldn't even imagine. And since then, I've been, following AI field very closely. And then, Ray Kurzweil had another book, actually a couple of other books. One of them is quite famous, called "Singularity is Near." And so that book influenced me a lot because he was actually showing that, and this was 20 plus years ago, the advance of computation over years, that how it was totally exponential. And of course, other technologies like gene sequencing and increase in computer memory and so on and so forth. You could see that they were all exponential, basically doubling. The famous Moore's law, doubling of CPU power every 18 months and so on. And then, of course, with internet, knowledge generation also started to double. And I could see that also in my own field in biology. The amount of experiments we could do on a given time was also doubling over certain periods. And he was predicting that by 2029 we would actually have what we now call AGI. AI that's sort of as smart as almost all humans, and then within a couple of decades, we would actually get into this period of singularity, which is basically a period where you cannot predict what will happen even next day, because we have the artificial superintelligence that now sort of directs all human progress. In fact, about 20 years ago, I coined a term, or I had a blog where, being inspired by singularity from Ray Kurzweil, I termed a period what I called biosingularity, where within 20, 25 years, this was 20 years ago, we would be able to treat most of the diseases because of AI. And then, by 2040s, that we'll be able to reverse aging process because we'll have almost complete understanding of the biology. Right now, we don't. So once you understand all the parts and all of the biology from the first principles to the molecular level, then you can actually manipulate it, and you could bioengineer it, and in fact, even you could create what I would call human 2.0. Not just reversing aging, but maybe increase many of our capabilities, from our intelligence to other biological processes. that I predicted would happen by 2045 or so, but I'm actually I realized that I was a bit conservative on that, move that timeline to even earlier. Yeah, so that's my short story.
What's the origin of the infamy on Twitter? How did you become
Well,
infamous?
I think the infamy is because I don't accept status quo. I like to think different, as Steve Jobs would say. Ideas before their time seem very crazy. uh, you know, 20, 25 years ago when you said, well, we're going to reverse. I mean, even now, actually, let alone 20 years ago, if you say we're going to treat all diseases, we're going to reverse aging, we're going to have super human intelligence, we'll be able to do this and that. These are crazy ideas. um, but because human mind is not able to think exponentially, we tend to think linearly. So we sort of extrapolate the future from the past. Most people say, okay, how is that possible in the next 10 years? If you look at the progress in the next last 10 years or even 20 years, there is advance, but it's not that much. Um, because they can't really envision that the next 10 years is going to be more than the last 100 years or maybe more. The advance is going to be really spectacular, and I think the next 20 years probably going to be more than the last 2,000 years. So imagine like you're living in 1910 or 1925, whatever, and you suddenly time traveled to today. How would you feel? I mean, some things would look familiar, but a lot of things would be incomprehensible. That's how we're going to feel if you were to time travel to 2035, 10 years in future. So that's why, some of these ideas seem crazy. And then also, I've been making the point that we are really, it's probably the most critical time point since the beginning of civilization. I mean, you can go back, I don't know, 5, 10,000 years. And the reason I'm saying that is because of AI, pretty much everything changes. All our norms, the whole society. I mean, I've claimed that, I warned people who wanted to go to medical school, or that, there's less point of doing PhDs now, or a few years later, there's not going to be any point doing PhDs, for example. I mean, everything changes. So these are, of course, dangerous ideas. Or, I mean, it's not like ideas. It's like I'm really making some predictions from the future, and they're almost inevitable. But it's very, very uncomfortable to think about these things, because it's very, very disruptive. So yeah, maybe that's the reason of infamy, I guess.
Cool, cool. All right, you seem very optimistic to me. I am also. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm also kind of an optimist, but I also want to make sure that we actually end up in this great future. And I'm a bit anxious that actually we might not make it. I mean, it could be that AI is not going to become super intelligent and fix aging and everything. So that's why I'm still working on aging. I want to make sure that we have more time to catch that singularity. Um, how do you see this? Because I see a lot of people from longevity space kind of moving away from it to AI, being like, well, at least we got to make sure that we have AI safety, because if AI is coming, no point is working on aging anyway, because either it's gonna kill all of us or it's gonna solve it. I'm kind of working on the hedge, like maybe it's gonna take longer, so we need to at least live a bit healthier and longer until that happens. So how do you see it?
Well, of course, it's going to take a little bit of time. It's not because of the AI, because biology is very complex, and we don't know all of the parts of the biological systems. I mean, in a given cell, just one cell. there are thousands of processes happening every single second. There are thousands of proteins, thousands of RNA molecules, thousands of metabolites. So this is just one cell, and there are hundreds of different types of cells that communicate with each other. And then you form tissues, and then you have this incredible physiology. In our brain, there are trillions and trillions of synapses that form, our intelligence. And so it's extraordinarily complex, and we are still trying to generate enough data sets to decode all of the parts. I mean, we know a lot now. I mean, compared to 10 years ago, because we have these technologies of sequencing, and we can detect. Actually, we're just doing an experiment where we're looking at thousands of cells and changes in the proteins of each single cell over time. So in one experiment, you can generate millions of tokens of data if you want to talk about tokens. So the point I'm trying to make is that we have a lot of data to generate, but data by itself doesn't mean very much. Because in fact, my point has always been, if we didn't have this AI technology, we had absolutely no hope of reversing aging or curing every diseases in the next 10, 20 years. It would have been impossible. The reason is because it's extraordinarily to figure out the issues on a cellular or tissue level or a whole body level, but also it's extraordinarily difficult to make predictions, right? So you have to be able to, if you develop a drug, you have to be able to predict whether that drug not only going to help you, but it's not going to have side effects, or it's not going to, if it's for liver, it's not going to affect your heart cells. So these things take years of trials, and one by one. So it would take probably centuries to figure things out, and that's why things have not moved, super fast, very incrementally. But AI changes all of that, because now with AI, it doesn't matter how much data you have, as long as you have the data, you can very rapidly start to process that. I'm actually I'm going back and digging all our old data sets. We have thousands of gene sets and metabolites and all those things, and we try to make some sense out of them by bioinformatics, statistics, and machine learning at that time. But I think it was very, very limited. So there's a lots of discoveries buried in there. I mean, it's like a gold mine that and we're discovering it every day. And I can eventually give you a couple of examples of that with O1 Pro and deep research from OpenAI that I've been working on. That's why I'm super, super excited, super optimistic, because now we have the tool to really make sense of biology and super accelerate all these treatments and editing and whatever you want to do. Now, the downside part. Um, uh, the reason I am very much against so-called AI doomers, or people who are trying to slow things down or pose, and who have this illusion, I would say, to think that they can actually create a safe AI. That is not possible. The reason why that's not possible is because the most unsafe thing for humans in the world is other humans, right? So the only reason we had any existential problem has been the other human beings. Except if we were hit by a meteor, of course the world will be destroyed. But if you exclude that, the worry has always been that we will destroy each other, right? From nuclear wars to chemical warfares, or creating biological things. So it's the problem is the humans. So if you try to align AI with humans, you're going to have problems in the end. First point. Second point, you cannot stop this advance no matter what you do. If you try to slow it down, if you pose it, some other country, some other organization, somebody will continue this, because this is so powerful technology that it will be developed. The third point is that actually people who are actively trying to slow down the AI progress actually doing something really, really bad, because at the end of the day, every day we slow down the progress. Every single day, about 100,000 people die from aging, and another 50, 100,000 people die from other diseases and cancers, which are mostly related to aging as well. So, we're losing people; they're dying. So every single day of progress counts. Eventually, every 8 billion people in the world alive today are going to die. Okay, so that's the existential crisis. And the only hope that these people have is that we have AI advancing as fast as possible, so we can cure every single disease and reverse the aging process and cure aging. So you know uh, basically, my views on this are very strong, because I see that all these issues about safety, this, safety, that. Yeah, you can put all the guardrails you want. That's fine, but somebody can break those guardrails, or somebody can develop a malicious AI model. I think the best way to counteract that is using AI to defend ourselves against malicious AI, which, by the way,
Yeah.
is going to be because of other human beings, right? So
Yeah.
that's my approach.
Yeah, of course, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We want a sensible approach. Nobody wants AI to kill everyone and be some kind of
Well,
dumb
I don't know
paperclip
about that. There might be
maximizer.
people. There might be some human beings who want that.
Sure. Okay. I mean, most of us would agree that we don't want some
Right.
dumb paperclip maximizer filling the universe with paperclips or whatever metaphor you
Right.
want. That they're just like sad, right? No life and no purpose to the universe anymore. But we also don't want to allow the horrors of aging to continue, and we want progress. Like Vitalik has this great um, framework with DAC, defensive and decentralized democratic accelerationism. There's a bear chasing you, so like dangers are behind you, cannot stop, you need to go ahead. But there are multiple paths forward. One is dystopia, one is utopia. So we got to make sure that we go towards the utopia. I think the discourse would be better this way, instead of having doomers versus boomers, bloomers, whatever, and having sort of like that whole tribe mentality and like uh, group identity and so on that's been happening with EAC versus EA and so on. I don't like that. Just we should align to anyway. It's hard for for humanity to align, and that's like when you talk about aligning AI with humanity, like what do you mean? Because we have different values, but it's a hard problem. I do think we should solve that, but like that's a bit off topic for us, right? So getting back into Viva City, longevity, and so on, that's relevant to what you said earlier. So the reason we're building this city, apart from, of course, it's amazing to live with like-minded people and there's more cohesion, more like Los Alamos top experts being in one location and coordinating better. There's the most important part, which is like the regulations, right? To have a special jurisdiction where we can accelerate clinical trials, and especially so that works even if AI is not going to be super powerful and it's just one of the tools that we use. It's going to be still useful to that. But even if AI can really do in silico trials and so on, and you don't even need clinical trials anymore, I think the FDA and others will still be very slow to adapt. So such a jurisdiction,
Well,
I think, could still be
I like to
very
counter
important.
that, but go ahead, finish.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, I mean, I think a jurisdiction will be important because even if AI figures out drugs and so on, it will, like the FDA will still require a very long process, very bureaucratic, and by the time they move, a lot of people will die. So it's very important to have a place at least where these drugs can be actually sold.
Okay, so let me make some couple of points. First of all, if you don't have AI, it doesn't matter if you have the freest price in the world, no regulations, nothing. You're not going to make much advance. Okay, so first of all, you really need regulations right now, at least, because it's extremely unpredictable. If you have a new drug to test, or if you anything to test, actually, not even drugs, you have to have some sort of a regulations. You have to go
Of course,
through
yeah, we're not
the
talking
trial
zero
period.
regulation. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
but
we're
but but
talking
I
faster
think
clinical trials, not.
there's this wrong notion. Yes, there is overregulation, but it's not as
Yes,
dramatic as people think it is. Okay, so in fact, FDA has a sort of a accelerated program where if it's kind of a very important or life-threatening disease, you can just develop a drug based on some biomarkers. For example, you don't have to wait for a person to die or live. This is usually for cancer. You can look at the size of the tumor or some markers. That hasn't been very successful. So there were even some drugs approved in an accelerated fashion, but then even though the tumor shrank, the overall survival of the people didn't change very much. Maybe it affected 1 or 2 months. So at the end of the day, you still had to go through the whole trial. And then the other point is that the human population is very heterogeneous. It's extraordinarily difficult to predict, the sort of the side effects or the effects by testing that in a limited subpopulation. Okay, so the reason for that is that medicine is not personalized. What we really need is a personalized medicine. So in other words, your
yeah,
genetics, your metabolism, your environment is different than somebody else's. So the treatment should be tailored just for you. I mean, right now in medicine, the only way you can do that is through surgery, right? So, like surgery is just for you. They take
yeah,
your organs. So this is an extraordinary problem. It doesn't matter if you don't have any regulations or this and that. There's not going to be, that predictive power. But AI will change all that. So whether you have a free city or not city, or regulations or not regulations, how let's ask this question: how can we imagine AI can accelerate all of this clinical trial processes? I mean, the drug discovery is already accelerated, right? So, before it used to take, years to discover new drugs. Now it takes literally days. Soon it will probably take hours because you can screen using AI, millions and millions of drugs. But then you still have to test them on, animal models. You still have to test them on humans, and wait 2 3 years whether there's going to be side effects or not, and so on and so forth. So how can AI help? Well, AI can help if we could develop these what I would call in silico models. Whether it's a cell model, whether it's a tissue, and eventually a complete digital twin of the individual. So if you know all of the biological parts and processes that happen, you could literally simulate the whole biology, the whole body, in a computer using AI. I mean, so you can actually say, okay, I have this drug that's acting on this receptor on the cancer cell in your lungs or your brain or whatever it is. Tell me how effective it's going to be now, and then what kind of resistance the tumor is going to develop to that. What can I do to counteract it? And then what kind of negative effects I would have of this drug for this person's this tumor, this mutations, and this physiology, and so on. Okay, so you run the simulation, which would take years to do it on thousands of people with hundreds of millions of dollars of cost, literally in matter of days, or at most weeks, maybe, if you have enough compute. If you have these new data centers built, we should be able to do it in hours, literally. So this is where the real revolution will happen. then you don't even need any regulations because, for example, many drugs are effective in phase 2 trials, uh, you know, um, but most of them fail in phase 3 trials. It's called the death valley of drug discovery. And that's where the main cost and main problem happens because now in phase 2 trial or phase 1, phase 2 trials, you're choosing very limited number of people, let's say 100 people or, 50 or people on a given disease. So you see, oh, wow, statistics significant effects and very little side effects. But when you increase that number to 1,000 people or 5,000 people, then the effect becomes lower and the side effects increase because you have now a heterogeneous population. You don't know
Exactly.
which patients to
So
choose. If I could say this drug will act on this person, and it will have very little side effect. If I can predict that, 100% of the drugs that are being tried, that passes phase 1 trial, will have a positive effect with zero side effects because you know exactly whom
yeah,
to give that drug.
yeah, exactly. So here's the issue, right? I don't think it's acceptable that it has to take decades and billions of dollars to bring drugs to market. We have seen with something like COVID that we can have an accelerated clinical trial and have the same level of safety data as we would with other vaccines that would take
Well,
15
I
years
mean,
in just
people,
8 months
people
now.
are really complaining, right? I
Now, of
mean,
course, it
everybody is
didn't work
saying,
out. It
well,
doesn't always
the
work out.
vaccine. Well, it did work out actually, but then people say, well, we didn't try the vaccines enough, because some people
Yeah.
had
So
side effects
So,
and
so the problem is with
and
the
so on and so forth.
mandates, right? Like if you allow people to choose, like if especially if it's something where it's a terminal disease, people don't have the time to wait, right? And aging is a terminal disease, by the way, right? Um, it's really a choice between sometimes euthanasia, like a 100% chance of death, and some hope, right? Not everyone has to take the drug after just a few months of safety data. Some people can choose to wait long term. But yeah, one key aspect I think is what you just said is if you would have more personalized medicine, it would be great. But the problem is pharma doesn't actually even drops really good drugs when they realize that the population is too small. They just don't take it all the way. But that drugs could work for a subset of people, but then it doesn't make sense financially because the process is so expensive. Because because of the regulations is my thesis, right? It takes so long. There's just all this regulatory burden, all this bureaucracy, and it makes it so expensive. And it's not even like we have rigor. Like I think the state is pretty sad when you see how pharma can cherry pick from multiple centers and so on. Only show the FDA only subset of data from some centers. It's just really appalling, and we're in a really bad situation. We don't really have good effective drugs. We need to uh, speed up things on more advanced therapies like gene therapies, cell therapies, other interventions, right? That's in bioelectricity and so on. Just need to experiment more and like have it cheap enough that you can try it out on a few people and have it more personalized and have a financial sense. We've seen in special jurisdictions with something like Minicircle that they can in just a few months with a few hundred K, they
Can I
can do
can
the
I
safety
interrupt
data.
you because
Yes.
we're kind of short on time, so we should move forward. But my point is that without AI, nothing will go faster. Let's just hope that AI progresses and it will. Then all of these problems will be solved because there's no point in discussing this further.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, I'm hedging just in case AI won't be that helpful, but of course my hope is AI will be very helpful.
Yeah, try
Then
try not to die for the next 5-10 years.
yes, definitely. How do you make effective prompts for LLMs in your scientific and drug discovery endeavors? Can you describe the process, like step by step? Um, does your prompt evolve and so on? How does it all work? I think you're a master of prompting LLMs for science.
Yeah, I mean, this question is asked a lot. I there's this notion of prompt engineering. I don't have any particular structure that I use, and it constantly evolves and changes and depends on the model used, depends on the question. but I can mention a couple of things that I find extremely useful. So first of all, I think the current models like O1 Pro or one model or deep research from OpenAI, they don't need much prompt engineering because they're so smart that they actually understand the context of what you're trying to ask. In fact, in case of deep research, it asks you a bunch of questions after your prompt just to clarify things. Okay, did you meant to say that you want me to research the solid tumors, or lymphomas, or do you want me to research diagnostics versus treatment? Where do you want me to focus, or all of it, and so on and so forth. So that's already helpful. But a couple of things that I find extremely useful, and these are true mostly for the thinking AI, like O1 models, or with Grok, there's the think function, or deep research for that matter. And that is two major things, or maybe three of them. One is that you want to sort of stimulate these models to be creative and innovative and come up with some new insights, and that has to reflect from your prompt. Let me give you an example what I mean by that. So for example, we have to come up with some innovative ideas in our daily research. You know for me it's the biomedical sciences, but for others it could be other things. And the only time that I can come up with an innovative idea is that if I sort of in my thinking process, if I cross fertilize it with something completely different. Just to give you a very specific example, I like video games a lot. So I play these games called, battle royale games. If for those who don't know, you're in a restricted area, so you have to collect resources, you have to fight with other players, and eliminate them so that you can win the game, right? So it occurred to me that in the context of where the immune system is trying to eliminate the cancer cells, this could be a quite interesting inspiration, or a model, because there also you have these T cells which are kind of like fighting for resources and trying to kill the tumor, and some of them get exhausted, some of them are better than the others. So how can you like select for the best guys there so that they can be more effective against tumor? So in fact, I had come up with some ideas, and we even did some experiments, and actually the experiments worked, and we're gonna publish a paper on that. And when O1 preview came out, I asked this question. I said, well, I want to make these T cells much more effective against the cancer cells. But we have this problem of some of these T cells get exhausted. They can't find enough resources around. They don't have enough energy, and some of them are not very potent. So how can I solve this problem? And while you think about this problem, also be inspired by these battle royale games. That's what I said. And that was the first time that I had this eureka moment, or like I was in shock, or oh, because really O1 Preview came out with not only the ideas that I was thinking about, but things that I didn't even think about. Really taking that analogy of battle royale games and then applying it just like a game, creating these scenarios of how T cells would survive better, or how we can await their exhaustion or select for them. Came up with bunch of really 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 cool ideas, and O1 Pro was even better than that. Coming out. So that's one thing I would suggest people to sort of cross fertilize their prompts, so that AI can make those connections, and it's really amazing in how we can do that. Um, and then the other thing that I find very useful is sort of have the AI to brainstorm internally. What I mean, let me give you an example for that. Again, let's say I have a given scientific topic, a problem that I'm trying to solve, or come up with some new hypothesis that I can address that. So what I say to O1 or O1 Pro, imagine that you are two scientists. One of the scientists is very enthusiastic like me, thinks of things that, oh, this will work, this is going to be fantastic, and I have this great idea, but then have a second scientist who's equally knowledgeable, but is a critique. It has more critical mind, and it will tell scientist one, well, that's a good idea, but did you think of this problem? It could have this side effect, or you can have these issues, and then have scientist one respond to that. Oh, that's a good idea. Let me think it over and come up with a better idea. And then, sort of have them talk like, 10, 20 sessions, and iterate on this particular idea. So you literally watch the AI to debate internally, and then constantly improve on the idea, and then come up with all the potential pitfalls and alternative strategies, how it can solve that problem. That's in my work, because we're in a sort of unknown land. We're trying to figure things out. That turns out to be extremely valuable. In a similar kind of a manner, you can also say, okay, I want you to think of a solution or an idea, but iterate on that idea at least 10 times. So, and each iteration should be better than the previous one. Think about it, think deeply about it. That prompt also yields some very cool responses.
Great. So I would love to invite people to request to be speakers and join the conversation. But first, we have a few questions from people on Twitter, on X comments. So first, what are your thoughts on the TREAM and TREAM-X trials by Greg Bay et al. To rejuvenate thymic tissue? They seem to be showing promise at producing more naive T cells.
Yeah, it's an interesting trial. I think there was a paper published 5-6 years ago. I haven't followed it since then. I don't know if there's a follow up on it. But for those who are not familiar, because this is something that I work on. Uh, Basically, what we call naive cells are sort of the precursors, or kind of like semi-stem cells of our these T cells that I mentioned, the actual soldiers that go and do the fighting against viruses and bacteria and cancer in that matter. But they all come, or they get educated from this naive population. So, and the naive cells, are first trained in an organ called thymus. So think of thymus as like primary school or high school, where you are training these cells, and then you're sending them to the peripheral lymph nodes, and then if they see a danger like a virus or bacteria or cancer, then they go into sort of a graduate school or college, let's say, and they specialize and say, okay, so I am now specialized on recognizing COVID virus or flu or breast cancer cells. So they develop, they acquire weapons and abilities to fight against that threat. So the ones that is effective against COVID virus is not going to be effective against flu virus, for example. So they all specialize and get educated, and at that point we call them effector cells or memory cells. So when you are born, there are very few of those guys because, right, you haven't been exposed to enough dangers. So your thymus is very active. It's just, educating people, these T cells, sending them to periphery, but they're still naive cells. As you're exposed to a lot of infections and threats, a lot of them turn into these memory and long-term, what we call effector cells. But so what happens is that after about 4 or 5 years of age or around teenage, the thymus starts to get smaller and smaller because you've already produced enough of these naive cells, and so it's more important to have this memory population, right? Because you want to remember what kind of cells that you were exposed to, and they work, and this works really well for a very long time, and you usually have enough naive cells if there's something new shows up, like COVID virus or something that you have never been exposed before. But unfortunately, after certain age, probably starts around age 60s or 70s, the proportion of these naive cells that are also very long-lived, by the way, starts to decline, and they're also getting older. And because you don't have enough of this thymus, there's not enough naive cells coming out to replenish those cells in the periphery. But this happens as you get older. So when you are exposed to something new, which we actually experienced during the pandemic, right? So COVID literally killed anyone over the age of 60s or 70s, 1,000 times more than someone in their 20s or 30s or 40s, because they don't have enough capacity or naive cells to recognize these new threats. Although someone who's 80, 90 years old, if they have been exposed to, let's say, I don't know, a flu infection 50 years ago, they'll be perfectly fine because those memory cells will still be there. So I think this trial is trying to see if we could have this thymus more active as you get older. And there was some encouraging results, I think, from the early trial. I think they used metformin, DHEA, or something like that. There was some increase in the naive population in the periphery. So yeah, it's an interesting study. But obviously we have to be careful because these things might have other side effects. But I'm curious to see how that proceeds.
Okay, great. We have next a question from Mikhail Batin. How do we create and compare, quote, universes made up of non-contradictory hypotheses?
I didn't really understand the question.
Yeah, create and
What is
compare, quote, universes made up of non-contradictory hypotheses.
universes, you said?
Yeah, I guess
I
just collections
I have no
of
idea.
made up of
I have no idea how to
non-contradictory
do that.
hypotheses. He has another question here. What format of hypotheses would be convenient for them to integrate with each other? So I guess he's
Is the
thinking of this
question
cloud of
for AI
hypotheses.
or?
Not sure. It's a written question. Maybe I know he doesn't speak English. He's one of the leaders in the Russian-speaking community, so I don't think he can jump up here. But maybe Alexei can come and clarify later, as he helped translate this. So, and then the next one is from Elena Mishina. Is aging a programmed immune system failure?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Aging is what?
Programmed immune system failure.
No, I don't think it's a programmed immune system failure. Although, I think immune system definitely contributes to aging process. I mean, it sort of works both ways, right? So it's unclear whether aging is actually a program, or let's say, how should I say it, or a non-program, right? So let me put it this way. Um, People have this wrong notion that aging is inevitable for biological systems. I mean, aging is inevitable if you have a car or some sort of a, inanimate object. Eventually, because of entropy, everything ages, right? So, in fact, biological systems also age. The moment you're born, you start to age because everything is damaged and ages because of the thermodynamics. But there's a huge difference in the biological systems, and that is biology has the capacity not only to repair the damage, but also to regenerate aged cells or tissues. In some cases, the regeneration happens by getting rid of the old cells, and then you have the stem cells regenerating and new cells coming out. In other cases, internally the cells are fixed and regenerated within the cell, and sometimes on the tissue level and so on. So without that process, we would age much, much faster. I mean, we wouldn't be able to live even 100 years. Now, the immune system is a very important component of maintaining this process. And the reason for it is that there's actually twofold. One is that we are under constant threats, right? So whether it's environmental toxins or viruses, bacteria, so all of these threats are causing damage in our body, and part of the damage is actually caused by the immune system itself. Like imagine you're in a war, you have your army is going to cause damage because it has to bomb certain area where there's enemy, but unfortunately, it's also destroying, whatever is in that area, right? So again, to give an example from the pandemic with the COVID, most people died because of the sort of the overreaction of the immune system. Your immune army was trying to get rid of the virus from your lungs, but as you get older, they couldn't because they didn't function very well, and so they were just sort of carpet bombing your whole lung tissue, and you were just dying because your immune system was just destroying your own body. Or to immunity, it can attack your own cells and so on. So as you age, this has a detrimental effect because your immune system is also aging, and so it's not able to protect you without causing further damage. So it can actually accelerate the whole aging process. In fact, we see that with HIV infected people, because their immune system is so damaged that we see that, for example, a 40-year-old HIV infected person has aged, 10 years or 15 years faster. They demonstrate aging of a 60-year-old or 70-year-old because of their immune system is causing a lot of damage. The second part of the immune system effect is that immune system also has what I would call the cleaning function or the regenerative function. So after infection, right? So you have to clean up the environment. You have to rebuild your tissues, whether it's a skin wound or some damage in your organs. And the immune cells play a very important role in that to coordinate that rebuilding and cleaning up the environment and removing all the debris, let's say. And there are specialized cells like macrophages and other T cells that give commands to local cells to rebuild and so on. So that function as you age is also lost, and so your regenerative capacity or cleanup or rebuilding is also kind of compromised. So yeah, keeping immune system young is going to help delay the aging process. It's not going to prevent it completely, but definitely will help with that process.
Great. All right, so I will invite people again to raise their hand and request to speak. We have two speakers, two people here wanting to ask questions. I don't know if Alexei wants to ask or to clarify Misha Button's thing first, or
Yeah, to be honest, he had three questions, and the one question about the evolution of prompts, I think Daria answered before, like in the middle of your discussion. And the other ones, I think Misha was a little bit sleep deep. Oh, Misha is there. Uh, Misha just joined, so if he wants, he can clarify his questions.
okay. Meanwhile, LeSean.
Yeah, I would love to first just express thank you and appreciation for your efforts. And yeah, a question I did have is, I wonder if, well, in the context of what Dario Amodei expresses as a country of geniuses in a data center, and he thinks we might be able to get that, say, 2027. I wonder what limitations you see with that kind of AI, with if we do get something like that, and where AI is headed generally, whatever your sense of that is, what key limitations do you think that AI will have that we can kind of prepare for and provide to the AI to get it to be able to solve things faster once it gains more capabilities?
So I mean, I completely agree with Dario. It probably might happen by next year. In fact, if he reach AGI this year, which I'm 95% sure that we will achieve fairly soon. I think I mean it's twofold actually. One is that I don't know how many people really appreciate this, but using AI really gives you superpowers. First of all, anyone with even with an average intelligence, if they are supplementing that with AI, they can start to feel like a kind of geniuses at some point, because it gives you all the knowledge sets you need, or ideas or creativity. I mean, you just need to have agency to implement those things. So I think in that regard, it's a big democratizer. So it's going to completely agree. It's going to create millions and millions of, or maybe hundreds of millions of geniuses all over the world. Um, uh, Human plus AI. The other thing is that AI itself is also becoming so capable that you'll probably have genius level AI agents just working each other, internally. You can imagine that actually Google just came out with AI scientist model. I didn't have a chance to test it yet, but hopefully soon. So you can have 1 million AI scientists working on a given problem without any human intervention, and within few days or weeks or maybe even hours, they come up with solutions or hypotheses to solve that problem. I think in both scenarios we're going to have a massive intelligence explosion. Already it's happening right now. Both in terms of creativity, in terms of innovation, in terms of making things much, much more efficient, creating things much faster. So it's sort of like a self-catalytic system. Actually, it's very similar to biology, because the reason why biology advanced, although about 1 millionfold slower, is because it figured out to make things go faster and faster. I mean, we have things called enzymes. So uh, it can make a molecular interaction thousands of, sometimes millions of times faster, so that you can create a new function, new function, and then bring all those functions together. So eventually develop human intelligence. We're going to see something similar, but probably be 1 million times faster. So
And
I'm
I do see
very
that,
excited
and
about
that
that.
is very much so. And what I'm asking is like, why can't why shouldn't we, or should we expect having 100 million AI scientists, genius AI scientists in a data center, and letting it rip for a few months? Should we expect that to solve aging? And if not, what kind of constraints should we expect that to have, that we need to solve for still?
As I mentioned earlier, I think the constraints. I mean, obviously we have compute constraints, which hopefully will be solved soon with enough data centers, and if NVIDIA continues to develop new processors and maybe quantum computing and so on. But that's a separate problem. I think the in biological systems, the main limitations is, as I mentioned, we need to do lots more experiments and generate lots more data. So, right now, I don't think any AI can solve, aging, because at the end of the day, let's say if it found something. Let's say it said, well, if you develop this drug, and then if you test it on these people, then it will reverse this process. You still have to go on and develop that drug, and then do all the experiments, and still have to try it on people, which will take years and years, right? So and I don't think that we are at that point yet, because we need the data. We don't have the data. Biological parts have not been figured out completely. So that's a very important limitation. But I think if we have the super intelligent agents in the next year or two, what that will accelerate is that as we are generating, billions and trillions bits of biological data, processing that information and then showing us the path for the next best experiment is going to accelerate. Things that would have taken us, 5 years to figure out will take maybe, 5 months, eventually 5 days. And then the other point, as I made earlier, is that if once we have this complete biological data set, I'm hoping in the next 5-10 years, then we can actually switch to in silico to do the experiments and to do the clinical trials. We're still, it doesn't matter how many super geniuses we have, we still need that data. So it will take some time to get there, but we're gonna need the super geniuses to be able to process that data and simulate cells and tissues and all biological systems. I think they will help each other and sort of catalyze together. But it doesn't mean that we need to just sit down and wait for AI to figure things out. We still have a lot of work to do as scientists.
Great. Yes. We are at the ending. If there are any final burning questions, please speak now or forever be in silence. So maybe a closing one from me. Who would you like to see for a future FountainSide chat? Like who would you like to hang out with on the side of this future fountain of youth we're building?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, there you go. Imagine you're in a city full of people interested in longevity, working on longevity, thought leaders that want to accelerate this. Like, who would you want to talk to on this space?
I would invite probably all three models from ChatGPT.
All right, can you help us make that happen?
It should be out today, I think, or very soon.
Yeah, we should figure out how to do that. Yeah, David Wood, also one of the leaders in the space from London, also has a final burning question.
So, great talk, Derya. My question is about the data, which is still missing. As you said, we can't expect the AIs to solve aging until they have more data, until we have more confidence that particular interventions will indeed have effects to remove damage and so on. So what do you think the AIs would actually tell us? Do these experiments, please, find out this data, and then the AIs will be able to reach their conclusions more quickly. What is the missing data that's most going to make the difference if we could collect it?
So I think there's two parts of missing data. One is what I would call the discovery based data, and the discovery based data is really trying to understand all the parts, all the spatial and temporal aspects of the physiology or pathology, from the protein levels to metabolites to the cells and the tissues. So there's still a lot of discovery that we have to do. I don't think AI can tell us, well, if you do this experiment, you're gonna find this amazing solution. And actually, we're beginning to do that because we have these technologies such as single cell sequencing. For example, Mark Zuckerberg Foundation, they're just starting a program to sequence 1 billion cells, each cell has thousands of different genes that turn into proteins. So they want to decode. Actually, will probably participate by sending them some cells as well. So that's going to generate trillions and trillions of bits of information. That's purely discovery because we don't know what we don't know. We need to figure that out, and then you can extend that to metabolites and other things as well. But the other thing is that there is sort of the even if you knew all of those parts, you still have to sort of engineer things, right? So, for example, you know the protein, you know a given drug that will bind to that protein, you know all the pathways and so on, but you don't know, what that drug could act on some other cell type or whatever, and so you have to do some experiments to test that. So AI can give you sort of, okay, well, do this experiment or do that experiment. For example, in my work, we do a lot of cell engineering. We like to develop these synthetic molecules that don't exist in the nature, based on what we know, so that the cells can recognize tumor cells better, or aging cells better, so they can eliminate it. So you can stimulate the stem cells to come and regenerate, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of innovation and creativity is involved there. And I think AI is extremely useful in telling you, well, if you use this and this, if you engineered it in this way, then it's more likely to work and your cells more likely to kill tumor cells. But you still have to do the experiment, but then it tells you out of a space of 1 million possibility or 1 billion possibility, it tells you, well, if you try these 5 things, that's more likely to work. I don't know if that makes it clear.
Thanks.
All right.
Exciting times.
Yes, very exciting times. Super exciting.
Yeah, on that note, with more excitement, hope to see you soon in Viva City. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.